Now, I've done a lot of stupid things, stuff that's so pointless that no one should bother wasting their time doing it, but this might just take the crown of probably the most unnecessary and possibly concerning things that I've done, stuff that I wouldn't even show my parents to. You know, I have a pretty risky figurine lying in my room, and to be honest, I'd feel less embarrassed showing this to my parents than the monstrosity that I just built. So over a decade ago, someone decided to create a Linux distribution themed around Hannah Montana. Why? I don't know, and frankly, I don't even think I wanna even begin to try to figure out the madness behind the person that came up with this. So the thing is, anyone can create their own Linux distribution, including one that I'm surprised hasn't received any legal threats from Disney. Not that they would really care, to be honest, because of the nature of this distro. You see, Hannah Montana Linux is as dead as you could expect. This thing hasn't received any regular updates. It's based on a really old version of Kubuntu, really old version of KDE Plasma, and the packages are beyond outdated to the point where I would honestly not recommend anyone install the distribution, not just because it's borderline unusable, but it's also a security hazard. This thing hasn't been maintained for more than 10 years, so you can imagine that it probably has a lot of security vulnerabilities that can be exploited, which is a shame because for a while I was actually kind of considering using this as kind of like a meme distro that I would use maybe as like a VM that would occasionally launch to transfer files and explore fishy websites, which is what I already kind of do with Manjaro XFCE, but there's no way I can do that with Hannah Montana Linux. So this is where my journey would end. However, the thing about this distro is that since it's fundamentally just Kubuntu with a Hannah Montana theme on top of it, it's not that impossible for us to replicate the look and feel of this classic distro. So right here with me, I have a virtual machine that I just created to install Kubuntu. There's no way I'm running this bare metal, not that it's impossible to do because I did pass through my drive, so there is a way for me to launch the OS through the boot options, but I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I also have the Kubuntu ISO downloaded. I don't actually need to flash this on any USB drive because Word Manager already has a built-in feature to install the operating system through the ISO files. If you're planning to install Kubuntu yourself, which honestly as a beginner distro is actually a pretty strong candidate, you can use something called Balena Etcher to flash the ISO to a USB drive, and then you'll install it by picking the USB drive as the boot option in your motherboard. Anyway, let's jump to the fart part, as right now we've launched the Kubuntu installation media. Now there was this one time I was jokingly told that Linux is hard to install. Let me show you just how quote unquote hard it is. So between these two options, let's pick install. We don't got time to dick around. Pick the keyboard layout of your choosing. I'm fine with English US. Now for this stage, you can choose between normal and minimal installation. I'm not gonna do a lot with this distribution, and I kind of prefer keeping things minimal to build it over time, so I'm gonna pick minimal installation. For other options, I do recommend checking both, especially the option for install third-party graphics and Wi-Fi hardware. Trust me, you're gonna thank me later, especially if you have some crazy gimmicky laptop. For the disk setup, pick guided use entire disk. Also here, I'm going to have a lot less worries because this is a virtual machine and I only pass through one drive. If you're installing this bare metal, you gotta make sure to pick the right drive if you happen to have more than one storage drive in use. Otherwise, you risk overwriting any existing data. Usually I can tell which drive it is based on the disk space and brand, so make sure you're also familiar with what's in your computer. Anyway, time zone, you know where you live. For user info, just fill in on the basic stuff such as username, password, name of the computer, whether or not it should require a password to log in. I'm gonna name myself Miley, and I'm gonna name the computer Hannah Montana OS just for the theme of this video. And after that, let's just let the computer install itself. Now, if this is considered hard, I gotta ask, how is this any harder than Windows? Now, obviously, it's a different story if we're talking about something like Arch Linux or Gen 2, but those are not distributions that you should be using as a beginner anyway, so you really don't need to worry about the difficulty curve. Anyway, now it's asking to restart the computer. We can do that. Usually you will also need to remove the USB drive, which they'll usually tell you on screen. But after restarting your computer, you should be able to boot to Kubuntu, log in as usual, and you should be good as far as using your computer, with potentially some additional updates that you might be asked to install. Now, this won't happen to you in specific, but in my case, I need to change the resolution very quickly because I'm on a VM. One of the first few things I do every time I install a new distribution is run NeoFetch. Now, in all likelihood, this doesn't come with NeoFetch installed, and yeah, it really doesn't, which is fine. To install it, you'll just need to type sudo apt install NeoFetch. Since this was recently installed, it will need to go through some initial repository updates, but Next time you try to install something through the terminal, it should be a lot quicker. Now that it's installed, if we type neofetch, bam, here we go. On the left, you have the Kubuntu logo. On the right, we have some basic specs. Now, notice how on the GPU side, it says Red Hat QXL Para Virtual Graphics Card. Yeah, we're gonna have to change this very quickly. Now, don't worry, you will not need to go through this, like, ever. I'm only seeing this because I'm running this on a virtual machine, and because I need 3D acceleration for a few programs that I'm gonna install later in this video, I'm gonna have to skim through a few additional steps off camera, so give Uncle Dan's a few seconds. Anyway, my GPU should be running natively, so we're good to go. Now, one of the first few things I try to do every time I install a new OS is make sure that this drive is running at the speed it should be by benchmarking it using this program called GNOME Disk Utility. Of course, we're also going to need a web browser. It already comes with Firefox, but I prefer Brave just a tiny bit more. Now, the reason for why we need a web browser, well, besides watching YouTube, of course, is that we're going to need to go to one specific site that is going to be very helpful to find the right files for the Hannah Montana OS, which is store.kde.org. Once we open this web page, what you need to do is go to the little search bar at the top, type Hannah Montana, and you should find the one uploaded by /sure whatever the fuck. God bless you. Go to the files tabs and download both the theme pack and the icons pack. It's gonna redirect you to SourceForge. It's fine, just let it download. Unzip those archives, and once you have the folders with all the necessary files, that's where the fun begins. Now, before we proceed from here, let me just say this, especially to people who aren't very used to using the terminal, don't feel intimidated by what you're about to see. Trust me, it's a lot less complicated than you think. If I can do it, you can do it even better. Anyway, depending on which distribution you're in and how you installed it, there are some folders that might not be available yet and we need to create them. So let's just type sudo make directory dot local /share/icons. Press enter, and once it's created, we need to copy the entire icons folder that we just downloaded. This is pretty easy. Just right click the folder and then select copy location. After that, we go back to the terminal and we type sudo cp-r. We then paste the copy directory, and then we just type .local /share/icons. If everything went accordingly, if we go to settings, appearance, and check the list of icons, Hannah Montana should be there. And just like that, we got one step ahead. We might as well also add the iconic wallpaper. Now at this point in time, there's no 16:9 version of this wallpaper because the distribution is from the fucking Stone Age. So I had to put black borders, or purple to be exact, because I would rather do that than either crop the image or stretch it out, which looks ugly as hell. I also prematurely started customizing the color schemes. I would recommend doing this after the step that I'm about to do next, but one thing I will say is I try my best to replicate the aesthetic of Hannah Montana Linux, but there's only so much I can do when we're talking about two different versions of KDE Plasma. Not to say that it's impossible to completely replicate the aesthetic of this distribution, because KDE is pretty customizable. But I didn't care too much about this. For the most part, I'm okay with having the same color schemes and icons, and I kind of like the idea of making a modern KDE spin of this classic distro. But if you want to go balls deep, by no means, go wild. I'm okay with where I'm at, although there are still a couple of things we need to do. Now once again, you may not really need to do this if these folders are already available in your home folder, but just in case, open the terminal again, type sudo make directory dot local /share/plasma. Then type sudo make directory dot local /share/plasma/desktop theme. After that, remember what we downloaded, two folders? That's right. For the themes folder, it's time to copy the path for a folder called Hannah Montana located in the Plasma folder. And then we just type sudo cp-r, paste the location, and then we type .local /share/plasma/desktop theme. If everything went well, Hannah Montana should be available when you select the Plasma style. The most notable change is in the taskbar. Like, look at that, isn't that fucking beautiful? I mean, it's not, but you know what I mean. By the way, we can also change the start icon. It's pretty easy. Just enter edit mode by right-clicking the taskbar, then right-click the icon, select configure, and after that, I'm sure you can figure it out by yourself. Just download a logo PNG on the internet and you should be good. But we're actually still not yet done. There's something else that we need to do that's even cooler. Now, when you boot your computer with vanilla KDE, you will typically see this. There's actually a way to change that, but before we do that, let's also change the wallpaper that shows up when you log into your computer. I already have the wallpaper prepared. You pick whatever the hell you feel like using. After that, you copy the path, open the terminal, and well, I'm sure you know where this is going. Type sudo cp-r, paste the path, and then type /user/share/sddm/themes/breeze. Or whatever theme you feel like using, it's up to you. Anyway, let's also type sudo nano/user/share/sddm/themes/breeze/theme.conf. And once you open it, you know where it says background? Yeah. Delete whatever path is written there and instead copy the location of the wallpaper that you just transferred to the Breeze folder and paste it right here. And then you can click Ctrl+X to save the changes. But we're still not done just yet. There's still something else that we need to do. First of all, let's download a colorless version of the Hannah Montana logo. I'm sure you can find it somewhere on the internet. Once it's downloaded, we do the usual. Sudo cp-r, then paste the path, and then, bear with me, /user/share/look-and-feel/org.kde.breeze.desktop/contents/splash/images. That was a long one. Now, for the next step, we're also gonna drop the terminal just for a minute because I don't think we really need to use the terminal for this one in specific. In fact, for what we're gonna do next, it might actually be a little bit easier to use a graphical text editor. So that location that we just sourced a second ago in the splash folder, there's a QML file that you'll need to open using a program called Kate. Around the beginning, there was a line that says source, and you will need to edit to reflect the image that you just copied. This one doesn't require the full directory path, it just starts with /images, then the name of the image. Now, following this, I would also advise editing the width and height. It took me a while to figure out exactly the size of the image, but after trial and error, I settled with 576 by 324. Also, just to show you that this did in fact work, I'm rebooting the VM right now, so I'm gonna show you that this did in fact change the boot screen. Let's give it a couple of seconds. Alright, there you go. So the background changed, so that's good. And let's add the password, and hopefully the splash screen should also change. And it did. This looks fucking beautiful. Now at this moment, this OS is pretty much done. So what's the next step? Well, let's install Steam. While this keeps downloading in the background, I might as well give you some recommendations for essential programs. MPV and VLC are definitely important video players to have. MPV is good for basic media play and can also have really good integration with other terminal-based programs for streaming, such as Anycly, which I've shown in the past how to install. And in case you're wondering, yes, it also works here. As you can see here, it's playing Yuri Yuri just fine. Now, in case any of you accuse me of pirating, listen. I'm only showing this for educational reasons. I mean, if you're an anime fan, you're probably gonna do this shit anyway because not everything is available on the garbage streaming services that we currently have. So instead of using some weird site with questionable ads, just watch it through the terminal. It's safer and way more convenient to use. Oh, and by the way, I own Season 1 and 2 of Yuri Yuri on Blu-ray. I coughed up the cash, so don't fucking come after me. As for VLC, I'm sure you have experience with VLC, so I don't think I need to explain this much. For editing videos, I use Kdenlive. Not the most ideal editor, but it's open source and a little more readily available compared to other editing programs. But if you want to use a more professional tier editor, there is DaVinci Resolve and Lightworks. But at this point, I'm already too accustomed to Kdenlive, which by the way is the editor that I'm currently using to put together this video. Alright, Kiwami 2 is ready. Before we open that, I definitely gotta get Mango HUD, which is an overlay software, a really good one actually. I would also advise installing Feral's game mode, something that will help you improve gaming performance, which I've actually talked about this in the past in my Blue Reflection video. And then you just have to type Mango HUD and game mode run in the game's launch options. Now, here's the ultimate question. Can we game on this Hannah Montana reskin OS? Well, yes we can. I don't know about you, but this game's running pretty well. Seems to be averaging at around 90 FPS at 1080p max settings on an RX 6600. Not bad. Not bad. I guess since recently I've also been uploading quite a few Storm videos, I might as well also declare that yes, this can also run Storm 4. I've never had any issues with Storm 4 when it comes to Linux, it just seems to work perfectly. You can also play online, you can mod the game, and based on my experience with this card, I think you can also get away with playing this at 1440p and then upscale to 4K using FSR. The game doesn't support this natively, but there's a way to integrate FSR into any game. I'll probably talk about this sometime in the future. Now, if you have games on the Epic Store, they don't have a native Linux client, but there is a way you can get it to work. There's the Heroic Games Launcher, which a lot of people recommend, including myself, but I'm actually gonna go with installing this program called Lutris, which, trust me, if you're in any way interested in Linux gaming, Lutris is a must-have. You're also gonna need to install Wine in case it's not already installed, although for Lutris, I would also advise diving into custom Wine runners like the ones from Glorious Eggroll, which you can easily install using a program called Proton Up-QT. There's quite a few guides out there that you can find on the internet. Trust me, the Linux community got you covered. As for the game that I decided to test, I went with Daemon Ex Machina. And let me tell ya, I cranked the fuck out of the graphics settings, and guess how the game plays? Well, perfectly fine. As you can see at the top, it's targeting 200 FPS. It will never go above that because the frame rate isn't uncapped in this game. But 190-ish frames per second on Hannah Montana OS? Sounds like a fucking achievement to me. That's how you play games from the Epic Store, as well as a couple of other launchers. It's not even just Epic. Now, if you want to play games from the Microsoft Store, yeah, sorry, I can't help you with that. There's no such thing as Xbox Game Pass here on Linux. You're kind of fucked. Also, fun fact, you can also install Steam games through Lutris and play them using Wine instead of Proton, which sometimes helps with a few games. It's not the case anymore, but when I recorded the footage for this video, Idle Showdown still had performance issues with Proton, so I ended up installing the game through Lutris, and as you can see here, the game runs alright. No complaints. The last game that I want to show you, because it's the most recently recorded one, is Devil May Cry 5. Now, I actually already own this game on PlayStation, but I decided to buy it on PC because I wanted to test some things, and I thought, you know what? I might as well install this on my Hannah Montana OS and see how it runs. You know, people keep telling me, bruh, gaming on Linux, are you for real now? I don't know, man. This game's running pretty good to me. Now, of course, there are some games that don't work on Linux. I can't play Kill la Kill If, for example, but that's a topic for a completely separate video that I'm sure I will upload sometime in the near future because there's a lot that I would like to share about that game. But regardless, I know not every game works here, but I don't know, it's getting better. And look, I don't care what you think. If you told me 10 years ago that a Hannah Montana OS was running Devil May Cry flawlessly, I wouldn't have believed you. Just saying. Alright, I feel like this video has run its course, so now it's time to ask the ultimate question. What the fuck is the point of all this? Why did I go through all this trouble? Well, the answer to that is, I don't know. Now obviously this is not my main operating system. There's no way I would survive looking at this eyesore of a design every single day. Ubuntu isn't even the distribution that I daily drive anyway, although it does benefit having one just in case I need to test out certain software because Ubuntu is the most popular and well supported distribution out there, and there are some programs that are only available through the Snap Store. Now, I didn't enable snaps on my main Linux build and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon. But if there's a program that's only officially available through snaps, otherwise I would have to compile it from source or install someone's prepackaged upload on the AWR that may or may not work as intended, maybe it wouldn't hurt to just open my Ubuntu VM and use the software for however long I need. It just so happens that the same Ubuntu VM has a Hannah Montana theme. Listen, I don't know what you expected from me. I'm not exactly someone you should take seriously at all, and I ain't backing down from this shit. Now, as far as whether or not you should do this, here's the thing. If you want to use Linux for the first time, just install regular Ubuntu or Kubuntu or go with Linux Mint or even Fedora. I think these options are fine if you're a beginner and want to dive into the world of Linux, but I guess if you also want to theme your computer based off of Hannah Montana, I suppose you can do that. You're probably gonna get bullied by your friends and family, but I mean, I guess you can. The only thing I can say to you is God bless you.